When I'm working with new clients, I always ask the same question. It's sort of a trick question. My current clients, they know me well enough to know it's a bit of a trick question, but it's really an expository question to expose a perspective. And that question is, what do you want to be doing in the next 3 years? The next 5 years, what do you want to be doing? And 99% of the people answer the same way. They say, I want to have, it's something around things, right? I want this job. I want this relationship. I want this person in my life. I want this car. I want to be in a different place, something, some vacation. And what they always leave out is feeling, right? The feeling. Nobody talks about feelings. And that's the biggest thing that's the only thing we're doing here. We're walking around just feeling. Our entire experience here is feelings, right? You feel good, you feel bad, you feel satisfied, you feel invalidated, you feel unloved, you feel loved, you feel complete. All these are feelings. So in 3 years, what is it you want to be feeling? If you don't know that, right? If you don't know that, then you're sort of working backward, right? You're kind of hoping things just land somewhere. You have no clear goal for your emotional destiny. Where do you want to be in 3 years? What is your emotional destiny, right? 5-year time span, right? 3-year time span. What is your emotional destiny? How do you plan on getting there? And if you looked at this channel last week, I did a video on critical thinking. So I'm going to tie this all into that. Look where we are right now. This year, 2023, really is a year of polycrises. Polycrisis, that means many things on fire at the same time. And there's a particular quality about polycrises when you can actually say we're in a time of polycrisis. There's a characteristic that goes along with that, and that characteristic is one that's very important, and I think we all feel that to some degree, whereby everything is burning. Polycrisis, that means too many things happening at the same time, so many failures at the same time, and no one is really allowed to dig deeper into it, because the minute you dig into one crisis, the other one starts. You start looking at the other one and another one starts. And it feels like it's everywhere all the time. So this is a polycrisis that has really a quality of we can't look deeper into it. It's just happening, everything at the same time. That's generally where we are, where most people feel we are anyway. And when you know what's going on, again, refer back to what I did last week in terms of critical thinking. When you have a sense of what's going on, the next thing is to decide. Do I have a plan? Do I have a strategy? And I think a lot of people get in trouble and they get really frustrated because all they have is a plan. There's nothing wrong with a plan, right? A plan there's a guy called Roger Martin, actually. He talks about strategies and talks about plans, but he talks about it from a business perspective, right? If you're interested, actually, you should look up some of his stuff, but it's really good stuff. So most people have plans. And I think when you apply that to your life planning and strategy, you see the difference. Because a plan is a nice to have, really, because a plan is sort of forces you to understand the truths around you. What is true? What is true? With a plan, you're trying to answer that question. What is true? Right? It's easy to talk about what is true because you can see kind of what is true, right? But what is true can also get you into trouble. You're making a plan based on what is true. What you want, in fact, for your life is a strategy. Because while a plan is answering the question, what is true, a strategy is answering the question, what would have to be true, right? What would have to be true? That's a whole different level, right, of thinking, right? It sort of calls on the higher energies of sort of creation and love, as opposed to the lower energies of sort of survival and profit, right? So what would have to be true for me to feel complete in 3 years, for me to feel satisfied in 3 years, right? So creating a plan around a strategy could work like that, as opposed to just having a plan whereby you're saying, well, all these things are true. This thing's falling apart, that thing's falling apart, and I have a bit of this left, I have a bit of that left. All right, how do I make something work out of it? What's my plan? All right, it's much better to have a strategy. Problem with that is that a lot of people don't like creating strategies, because if they're trying to answer that question, what would have to be true, here's where it gets real. Because for you to feel satisfied, for you to feel accomplished, for you to feel sort of loved, something may have to change. And those are very uncomfortable things. Answering the question, what would have to be true in my life to feel loved, is a very scary thing for a lot of people to answer, because that means you might have to make a change. You may have to become somebody else, all right? Somebody you've never been before. You may have to leave that relationship. You may have to admit some real truths to yourself, right? Because if what would have to be true for you to feel complete, for you to feel motivated, for you to feel like you're living out your purpose in this world, what would have to be true might mean you may have to leave the relationship. It may mean that you may have to admit to yourself that you're not who you're claiming to be. In fact, you're an imposter. You're a fraud. Right? These are very uncomfortable answers to come up with. What would have to be true? But it's important to ask the question, answer the question honestly for yourself, and then begin to move forward. That's how strategy is done. And then everything around that, you can have micro plans and mini plans around the strategy, right? That support the strategy. But the general strategy is really, you're creating a new vision, a new environment for yourself. But you have to get through these uncomfortable questions first, right? What would have to be true around your relationship with your friends, your lover, your work habits, right? Your motivation, your ability to deliver on things you say, right? You deliver on. What would have to be true around those areas, right? There's some very uncomfortable questions there and some even more uncomfortable answers there. But that's how you begin to tie things together. You take a messy environment, an environment of polycrises, right? An environment of uncertainty, and you put yourself in a position to say, I do want something, and here's what I want. Here's what I want to be doing in 3 years. I want to be feeling successful. I want to be feeling accomplished, right? And how do I achieve all of that in this mess? Take critical thinking, like we talked about last week. Add a strategy to that and support that with the necessary plans. So that's a topic of mine that has come up this week, and I'm talking to a few clients about that now. But it's very interesting, think strategy and not necessarily plan, but be prepared for some uncomfortable times and some uncomfortable introspection. All right. So my name is Angelo, and I'm the motivator. Thanks.